Let's do a 2-hour painting challenge.
The Shed of Doom. Hey, dog. Yeah. In a box. Let's have what's in here. Ooh, some terrain. Some stuff. Ooh. Let's get this. Cool.
Hey guys, so I spent like about 3 hours, no, 4 hours a day filming a video, and I lost all the footage. It was to paint one of my grey nights, to show you guys the full process, but I lost all. But I could not face paint a lot of these guys because I'm painting them for an army for ITT, so I need to have a little break on these guys. So what I've got is a pile of shit, which you just saw earlier. So in my garage I've got a load of random stuff, so it's going to be like, you know, I've got some Terminators in there, I've got Venoms, and a various pile of models and minis that I have not gotten around to yet. So today I'm going to be doing a Venom. Let's just, I'm going to build it really quickly. Not going to show you too much of that, I'm going to show you my sort of improvised paint job going way through. So let's get into it. So we're going to start off with a primed Venom. Obviously I've not done the riders for this, I just want to get a core concept of a colour scheme for my Drukhari. So I'm starting off with, I believe, royal blue. I'll show you the colour in a second to make sure. I'm just going to pass this through an airbrush with some thinner, and I'm going to make sure I get a good coat. So effectively this is just going to keep going back and forth. Just make sure you build up the layers nice and slow, just to make sure that you aren't, you know, going to get any streaking or webbing from this. Because if you spray the airbrush too close to the vehicle at too high of a pressure, then it's going to, unfortunately, effectively turn into a web and spray apart from each other, and it causes a nasty little effect. So just make sure that you build this up bit by bit, layer by layer, and just take your time with it. And also enjoy it, because airbrushing's fun. And I know that people don't like airbrushes sometimes, but for a little personal challenge like this, it's absolutely fine. So to confirm, it was indeed Regal Blue from the Warpainter Fanatic range. But next we're going to go on to Effective Zenith. Well, it's not effective, it's 100% Zenith, which is a white model air from the Vallejo range. It's a slight off-white, slightly warmer hue to it, which is really going to work well with the next step. So again, we're just going to put this into the airbrush. We're obviously going to clean it out with some water first. And now you can hear me test spraying it. So effectively you just want to make sure that this is thin enough that it's not going to effectively create this nasty little splattery effect. And be careful when you're zenithing. Whenever you try and pull the trigger back and forth, sometimes it can effectively do a little bit of white dots everywhere. To avoid that, just do a few little clicks back and forth onto like either your hand or a rag next to you or something like that, to make sure that doesn't happen. And make sure, and then just keep it as maintaining a nice flow of air back and forth, and make sure that it doesn't carry on happening. And here is an example of such. So effectively you just want to be doing exactly what I say there, building up this layers layer by layer. Do take your time here, because when you create that nasty little webbing effect, if you do get the white too close, then it will be pretty hard to fix afterwards. So yeah, as you can see, I'm going back and forth. Just do this over the entire model and allocate where you want the brightest parts of this to be. Obviously, for me, in my brain, just because it's in the recesses doesn't mean it doesn't naturally shine, just because those are the things that are still pointing upwards. So I might be aiming towards vents, towards just larger, smoother surface, like on the wing there. Those are the sort of areas I'd be aiming for this exact zenith. And with our zenith done, we're going to move on to the next step. Now we're going to pick up our hot pink from the Warpainter's quick painting range. This stuff is really, really cool, and it's going to give you a really quick effect. I don't use too much thinner in this, because it's naturally quite thin anyway. But again, just really take your time here. Make sure you don't get any splattering or webbing effects. I know I'm going to keep saying that, but it's very important to maintaining this effect. The blue undershade will turn into sort of like a purple, and the white zenith on top will turn into this very vibrant, very pungent pink, which is obviously the effect that I'm going for here. Again, just keep going back and forth. Make sure that you don't have any white or underneath. When you think you're done, do more and more layer, because you'll suddenly find that it goes way more vibrant. And at this stage, you should have something like this. The pink is nice and smooth. You have a transition from the blue to the pink, which turns it naturally into like a purple to pink ratio, which is all nice and fun. And now to grab my wet palette. There's some paints on here already, guys, but that's from a previous job, which is the Templars. So I'm going to pick up some Scoured Green. And with this, we're going to be basing all of the lenses and the backs of the wings. So I've got a fresh wet palette. It is got a fresh piece of paper on as well. Thin this down with a little bit of water. I'm just using an artist oak brush, medium, which I think is size 3. But any wide brush will do here. Just be very careful around the pink. So as you can see, I'm just going to fill in these areas, nice thin down paint. If you need to do 2 layers, that's absolutely fine. But here, as I say, I'm doing like seeing what I can do in 2 hours. So we're still going to try and thin down our paints though, because what I'm going to say is if I don't finish, it's not the end of the world. But what I want to do is at least see like if I can get a color scheme down for this guy at least, because I've got some Drukhari in the shed. It'd be nice to have a color scheme down for them. So let's say fill in these colors and let's move on to the next step. And with that, we should have something like this with the colors filled in and lovely. And now that that's all done, we're going to grab our next colour, which is going to be Deep Azure from the Warpaint Fanatics range. This stuff covers really, really good, and it's going to give us a really good basis for our highlights on the turquoise. So effectively, shake up your paint, get a nice little blob, and make sure you thin this down. So as I say, if you especially working with turquoise like this on very smooth areas, if you apply the paint too thick, or if you apply a layer on top of another layer which isn't quite finished yet, or isn't quite dry yet, then you're going to create textures, and textures is where Drukhari models really, and Eldar or anything really, don't really like. So basically you'll end up having it look a little bit rough and all that sort of thing. So again, make sure your paint's thin, and you probably see me test this somewhere. And yeah, so just follow the edges of this, giving yourself enough room to work with the colors in the colors you're going to work with in the future as well. So as you can see, I'm just trying to create just like this area that I can fill in 2 more highlights afterwards. So just remember that whenever you paint this, there's going to be 2 more highlights going in afterwards, and well, 3 technically, and these are, so you're going to need to have enough room to apply those. So if this looks a little bit rough and large right now, don't worry about it. We're going to bring it in with more colors later. And this is what it should look like. You should have some more wide areas that you can fill in some highlights with, and let's move on to the next step. Next step is going to be Hydro Turquoise. This is just a slightly lighter shade of the turquoise that we're working with before. Because we're working on edge highlights like this, having a gradient in between this and the step above is really going to help blend these 2 together, especially when you have to apply 1 or 2 coats with this when it's super thin, because you want to make sure that you leave some of the previous colour showing. Just like this. So again, I've made sure my brushes are a really nice point, making sure I'm leaving some of that colour previous behind and filling in the gap in between. As you can see, my paint's super thin here, so I'm literally just going to be probably doing 2 coats of this, which I do end up doing, and just make sure that you're working within the lines of the previous highlight, just to sell this effect. Here it is towards the end of the process. You can see it's brightened up a lot in these areas. I'm just finishing off the lens, the window trim now, and yeah, let's move on to the next step. The next and last highlight is going to be Turquoise Siren. This is quite a bright turquoise, so as you can see, we've been working through them bit by bit. So again here, you're going to want to use this nice and thin. You're going to want to apply it into an even smaller area than the step before. So this one's going to literally end up being like a very small line. So I'll show you now. So here we are. We're going to be literally just drawing the thinnest line we can with this, because this is the final highlight. I'm just going to following it round. So when it gets to the edges like here, you could even arguably just use your brush like I am here, just on the very edge of it, just to have a very thin line. The ones that are next to actual panel lines, you're going to have to do that by hand. But the ones that are on the outside, don't create work for yourself. Just use the edge of your brush to do this. I think at this point I was about like 58 minutes in, so I was feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good about this so far. We've got quite a lot done so far. We've got the pink blocked out. We've got the turquoise almost finished. So yeah, let's see what we can get done in the last hour. Turns out, guys, I forgot to do one more highlight. So it was Neptune Glow. I think I saw it and was decided it wasn't quite vibrant enough, especially with the pink next to it. I think I need to really push the contrast here to really make it pop. And here I am again highlighting turquoise. So this time we're going to be really being sparing with this highlight. This is a pretty stark color, but at the same point it's going to really push the contrast on this turquoise. So what we're going to do here is paint even thinner lines onto these panel lines, and even drawing a little line at the end just to sort of tie them all together. But make sure your paint's super thin, make sure you're consistently cleaning your brush. As soon as your brush just starts to dry out the nib, you're going to be starting to create textures you really don't want. So when you're doing really fine work like this, you really need to make sure that you're on top of the moisture in your brush, really to have a lot of control over what you're doing here. So as you can see, I'm just drawing that line nice and thin, just to push that contrast up a smidge more on our turquoise. So here it is pretty much finished. We're just going to be finishing off the last little bits on the lens. I'm just using the actual lens line itself to just really like push the contrast on the edges of the panels. And obviously you're going to spill a little bit over onto the lens here, but that's okay. We're about to paint this anyway. And here we are going to take our royal blue. We're going to be shaking it up and put it onto our palette. This is going to be one part of the base coat for the actual lens on the front, the windows. And the second part of this is going to be the express colour from Vallejo. It's just Vallejo, this is the black one. It has got a slight bluish tinge to it, so it's good to mix with blue for a darker base coat somewhere. You could just use a darker colour. I just find that here I'm going to be using lots of thin layers with the royal blue on the window itself, so I just prefer to have something to blend up with that royal blue already established in the shade so that I can really push the contrast later on. So here we are, just going to be base coating it. Again, this is really thin. We've already base coated this really with another colour, but this is just to sort of establish the royal blue into this shade already, and it's also to tidy up the actual original, where I've not been very neat with trying to highlight the edges of the window panels as well. So it was all going so well. We finished our base coat, and I managed to get a horrible little fingerprint on here. So, so the way we're going to fix this is by thinning down some white paint and just dabbling it on first of all. Then, when we've done that, we put the same white paint into the airbrush, and it has a little bit of the hot pink in there as well, just to actually just give a bit of a highlight. And this sort of cleaned up the area that I was very concerned about. I didn't want to ruin the pink after the amount of effort we put in there. And now we've fixed that little whoopsie. I'm going to go back onto the royal blue. This is going to be super thinned down. We're going to be establishing some texture and some indication of where light's coming from with the royal blue. It's going to be super thinned down, stippling from the back of the lens, the front of the lens, leaving that deeper shadow there. This is going to take a while to build up opacity, and the layers do take a while to dry. So we're going to be doing some bits in between as well. So I'd recommend doing this as well. If you can do other bits of pieces on the model in between layers drying, just make sure that those layers are actually going to be dry when you re-establish them, and also it's just a better use of time while you're trying to paint. And yeah, once we've got a couple of these layers done, I didn't actually show you the paint here, but I'm using Caliban Green here from the GW range. I'm going to be thinning this down a smidge as well. This is going to be for the gun itself. So the gun itself, I see a lot of people do in like either a black or a silver or something along these lines. Now I really want to have something really punchy and something really obvious what I'm trying to do with this. So I think another sharp colour, so we've got the turquoise, the pink and the green together, will really come through. So as you can see, I'm just going to go around. I'm going to leave the metallic bits, so the little bit of the barrel at the back and the inner workings and the barrel at the end, but I'm going to fill the rest of this in with Caliban Green. This might take a couple of coats just to make sure we have full opacity and make sure there's no pink showing through or anything else, but well worth it. With that filled in, we're going to pick up our charcoal from the Game Villa range. I believe this is replaced now, but realistically any dark like grey/black paint will work here. I just use this because it's easy to work from, to try and do a little bit of NMM from. It's going to be very basic NMM because I'm not really strapped on time at this stage, but I'm basically painting the inner workings of the gun, the little metallic like bracket that holds the gun, and the barrel at the end. And while that's drying, I did another layer of blue, and I'm grabbing moot green and adding probably about 50-50. Like it's going to be, the pigment in Caliban Green is slightly dark. It is darker, so it's going to be having more of a show. You're basically looking for like a sort of quarter in between the two of them. So you want to go for 4 layers effectively. Caliban Green, then probably 1 part Caliban, 2 part, sorry, 1 to 1, and then 2 to 1, and then full moot green. Just because that's the nature of how it'll work, because the pigmentation of Caliban Green is so high. And just make sure you're thinking down your paints. You're doing the same concept as we did with the turquoise, and we're going to be painting in a larger area first, then a smaller area, and then a smaller area afterwards. And then we're on to the next layer. So we're going to get our moot green again, add it to Caliban, make it a little bit brighter as well, probably a lot closer to the moot green than it was before, and then just check the consistency, make sure it's nice and thin, fill in an area which is slightly smaller than the last one. This will take a couple of coats, but it is worth it, and then we'll move on to the next step. As we've covered the key concepts here, we're going to be going with moot green and following the same concept as before, just trying to create some really high contrast between the dark to light here. It's going to really help sell the effect. We're getting tight on time, as we say, but we're going to be doing the NMM anyway. So we're going to get AK Ice Yellow and add it to our charcoal that we have originally to have a pretty dark grey to start off with, to have a start off with this NMM. So once we've got our grey, we're just going to fill this in. We're going to be just effectively, this is the most important bit here is actually allocation of the highlight rather than a completely smooth blend. Like if the light placement is correct, it will still read as an just won't be as smooth. So here I'm just literally doing the inner workings, I'm doing the edges. This is going to be more, because it's the darkest color we're going to be using here, we're going to be using this as the largest area, just to map out where the highlights are going to go. And now we're on to our lightest highlights. We're going to be mixing into ice yellow, mixing that in, and let's put it on. As you can see, I'm just filling this in the little areas where I can put where I put the highlights before, just putting it into a smaller area than we have, similar to what we've done in the last few steps. And here I am with my moot green again, just going to put another layer on here. You'll find yourself going back and forth with a few colours here, and it's absolutely fine. It's very naturally part of the process, especially when I'm trying to paint quickly and well. You do find yourself revisiting a few steps, which is absolutely no problem at all. And next we're using our final grey highlight, which is going to be quite a lot of ice yellow in here and quite thin down. So we're going to grab this and put it into an even smaller area than before, just like so. So we're going to be filling this in here, just little dots, and being a lot more sparing with this because you don't want this to overload the area. You just want this to make it read as a metallic. And we've avoided it for long enough, guys. We're going to be onto the royal blue. Again, it's super thin down. We're going to be keeping nice and quick, just keeping stippling on this really, really thin layers. I have a hairdryer next to me to speed this up, but because obviously the paints are quite thin, so it can take a little bit of time to dry. Or I always like to leave a little bit of time to dry to make sure that you don't have any texture from re-establishing layers. And as you can see, I'm just trying to really build up those layers one by one. And once we've done that and done a little bit of highlight on the lens, we're on the home stretch. We're going to be panel lining. I can't really give you much advice here other than thin your paints and be very careful. There are other ways to do this a lot easier than I'm doing here, but I didn't have any oil. Because it's a 2-hour challenge, you're not going to get oil paints to dry in that time. So I'm just going around very carefully and slowly with a very thinned express paint with some thinner in there as well. And it's time for every Elder player's favourite bit, which is going to be the panel highlights. We're going to be using pink potion here, we're using super thin. So here we're going to be following around the panels and just trying to dodge the areas that we've already filled in. Just do a couple layers over an area if you've made a little mistake with the black, but just be careful, be methodical, and try to enjoy it. And unfortunately, guys, that was the last of my 2 hours. I managed to panel line it, but I'm pretty happy with the results, to be honest. Like, there's quite a lot done. There's a really nice solid basis here for colour scheme, and I'll definitely want to be revisiting this. Yeah.
Well, that was about a 2-hour paint job, and it's not 100% done, but I'm really happy with the pink. I'm quite happy with the turquoise as well, and this is something I will revisit at some stage. So the only thing I really want to do here is get the colours on the back of the controls. Like, I want to get them done, and I need to do the NMM on the actual shroud, like their standing platform. And then all the girls are clipped out and assembled and all that sort of good stuff and primed. So at some point I'll add her on. And yeah, but this is all right for a 2-hour paint job. I'll show you what I've done. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. If you want to see more like little 2-hour paint jobs like this, let me know in the comments. As I say, this was meant to be a grey night video, but that fell short. So yeah. Let's say, it's been a pleasure, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe. Much love.